So far, we haven't found out if they are weaponized, if they have Hellfire missiles on them, but I wouldn't be surprised. So you've got Iraq, which is, well, I would say pretty much still in the hands of the United States. Then to the northern area, you've got, well, let's see, some of the Caucasus countries that have been buying drones from Israel to put pressure on Iran. Turkey has bought drones from Israel. You know, I was on the 2010 Gaza flotilla that was trying to break another blockade, the blockade of Gaza. Gaza, this little Gaza Strip, 5 miles wide, 25 miles long, that has been under a blockade because a democratically elected government under Hamas that was elected and they took power in Gaza, and the international community, primarily the United States and Israel, didn't like it. So what do we do when we don't like things, even if they come about democratically? We try to undercut them. And so this blockade is the way to undercut Gaza, making an open-air prison out of Gaza. Well, I was on this 2010 6-ship flotilla sailing to try to break the blockade. And if you remember, the Israelis attacked that fleet of 6 ships. All 6 ships were attacked. People were beaten up on all 6 ships. But on the Mavi Marmara, the large Turkish passenger ship that had over 600 people on it, the Israeli military killed 9 people, including an American citizen. The death of that American citizen has not been investigated by our government. Our government has said, we'll let the Israelis investigate it. Over 50 people were killed on the Mavi Marmara. 9 were killed and 50 were wounded. Well, at the time that the Israelis were attacking that flotilla, Turkey had been purchasing drones and other military equipment from Israel. There had been quite a strong Turkish-Israeli partnership in the region. Well, when the attack happened, there were Israeli soldiers that were in Turkey that were actually training Turkish soldiers on those drones. And what do you think those drones are going to be used for? They're going to be used to put down the Kurdish rebellion that's in the southeastern part of Turkey. Well, the Israelis thought, rightfully, well, we better get our soldiers out of Turkey. You know, we just killed 9 Turks, wounded 50, we better get them out of there. So they did. But what most people don't know is, you know, behind the scenes there's a lot of toing and froing with countries, but sometimes the relationships don't just actually break down. And in the field of military equipment, they don't break down much at all. 2 weeks later, the Turks sent some Turks down to one of the airfields in Israel to continue the training on the drones. The Israeli government has now made available to Russia, and Russia has purchased $100 million worth of drones. And to the little country of Azerbaijan that's up in the Caucasus to the north of Iran, they have bought $10 million worth of drones. So from the point of view of the Iranians, you know, you've got the international community that is squeezing them on all the economic issues. You've got you know, all of the harsh rhetoric coming out, and then you see the weapon sales that are going on to all the countries that are around you. So it's a very tense time, and it's a time that I think for us as citizens, we have to be very watchful of what our government's saying. And if the track record of our government on telling the truth to the American people is remembered, most of the time it doesn't tell us too much of the truth. We know for a fact they were lying through their teeth on the rationale for going into Iraq. We now know that some of the documentation is now being made available to us, the citizens, about information coming out from the U.S. takedown in Osama bin Laden's compound in Abbottabad. Just today they're starting to say that they're releasing some of the documents so we can see what actually was in that compound. And there are already articles that are coming out saying, well, here are the missing parts of what they didn't tell you about all of what they found there. That in fact, Osama bin Laden had already been kind of pushed out of the leadership of Al-Qaeda by some of the other Al-Qaeda folks, because Osama bin Laden was kind of losing it. He was not able to kind of keep up with the pace of things. And you look at the documents and the commentary, not the government commentary about them, and we'll see a little more of the history of how we got really into Afghanistan. Another thing that I'll mention too is that we need to look at some of the other types of documents that now are made available to us. Not because the government wants us to see them, but because of someone in our government. And they say, it's alleged that a little private first class in the Army, a little private first class named Bradley Manning, somehow out in the far reaches of Iraq, super copied, downloaded a treasure trove of military and diplomatic cables. Some 400,000 cables, messages from our government explaining things that were going on. Messages between governments. There are more diplomatic cables that have been released through WikiLeaks than I ever saw in 16 years of working for the State Department. I never saw all of the millions of things that are coming up in these WikiLeaks. And those are really important. Those are so important because they've really shed light into the duplicity of our government and of other governments. The duplicity of allowing first Pakistan and then Yemen, saying that they would take the responsibility of saying to their own citizenry that it was their military that was killing Yemenis and Pakistani. The strikes that were happening were part of the counterinsurgency program that their own government was running, when indeed it was the United States that was doing military operations in their country, and the U.S. didn't want it known that we were doing that. It wouldn't have come out. We wouldn't have known unless those WikiLeaks cables came out. I was in Washington I attended first in the beginning part of last week, another one of the pretrial hearings for Bradley Manning. You know, he's now facing something like 50 charges and a potential of 80 years to life imprisonment. And his attorney is trying very methodically and thoughtfully to challenge every one of those charges. And that's why the pretrial hearings are going on. That the defense is making a motion to dismiss charges, dismiss types of evidence, or request that the prosecution has to give the evidence that they have against Manning to the defense so that they can look at it and see if they can challenge it. Something that the military has not been doing. Not only the military, but other government agencies have not been providing the defense with the information that they need in order to be able to mount a defense for Bradley Manning. But if you look at the importance of those things, I was at a gathering. It was very interesting. The Code Pink Women for Peace has an office in Washington. And out of that office, a lot of citizen activist things happen, not only for Code Pink, but for other groups. And interestingly, because it's, you know, citizen activism, and on one level, outside the United States, the U.S. is trying to kind of encourage citizen activism to challenge dictatorships, as long as it's a dictatorship we don't like. So somebody in the State Department has cooked up this idea that when they have these visiting exchange programs, people coming in from other parts of the world, that they will show them some American citizen activists. And I don't think Hillary Clinton knows that some of her underlings have chosen Code Pink to have some of these groups come by. But last week, this group of 50 from all over the Middle East, women and men, were in the Code Pink office, which is just a visual bonanza. I mean, your eyes are just looking around at all of the posters that they've got and the banners they've got up. I mean, challenging U.S. policies on everything. And for all of these people from all over the Middle East to come in and see because many of them don't really realize that there's an active group of people in every community of our country that are challenging our own government's policies. For these young, budding journalists and to be in there looking at all of this. When I walked in, I just come from one of the days of the pretrial hearings for Bradley Manning, so I got there at the very end of it, and Medea Benjamin was kind enough to say, well, we have a person that's just arrived, and she's been at the hearing for this whistleblower, this Army young man that released all the stuff under what you call WikiLeaks, and she's been at the hearing. Well, oh my gosh, all of a sudden, all of these people that had been sitting there kind of looking like, all of a sudden hands started going up. I want to tell you about what we found out about our government through those WikiLeaks. This is really important. That man, we want to thank him for what he did, if he's the one that did it. It was really, really so heartwarming to get feedback immediately from people from all over the Middle East about how important it is that they know what their own government's doing. So in these times, these very difficult times that we are living in, I mean, we're under great pressure of drones that were killing American citizens outside the country. We've now killed 4 American citizens in Yemen, targeted assassinations by the President of the United States, extrajudicial killings of American citizens, and now we know that the drone lobby and the drone caucus in the U.S. Congress has put a resolution or now a directive into the FAA that by the year 2016, airspace enough for 30,000 drones to be in our commercial airspace will have to happen. We have drones that will be surveillance drones in our law enforcement groups. Drones that can be as small as little hummingbirds that can fly through that door and just sit right up there with their little camera. Just kind of look around and you'll never even know that they're there. They can fly through an open window at your house and go down into your office, check it out a little bit, and then fly back up. We have the National Defense Authorization Act that says that Americans can be detained by our own military, can be held indefinitely. We've got a lot of things that we have to be pushing back on. Our cell phones, our trackable, anywhere you go, anywhere you are is immediately trackable by your cell phone. The state is after us. I don't know if any of you all have been working with Occupy groups in your communities. Yeah, the Occupy groups. Great citizen activists that are out there challenging the economic system, the industrial system, the prison system, the judicial system, that are getting the hell beaten out of them. That law enforcement that is now apparently on notice by communities at all levels, of the city level, the county level, the state level, and the federal level, that it's just fine to beat the hell out of activists. And we've seen it all over the country. We've seen that pepper spray is so easy to use, and it doesn't have to be done in a humane fashion if you want to stop somebody from doing something. But all these people that have been sitting on the ground peacefully, non-violently, protesting whatever it was, and a police officer comes right up and squirts them right in the face. The numbers of broken arms and broken legs that have happened throughout our country as our law enforcement, who are dressed now as ninja turtles, that the militarization of our law enforcement network has brought it into a totally different way of being. It's not a citizen, it's not a community-based policing system, it's now a militarized policing system. So we do have lots and lots of challenges, but it's by coming together, by talking about the issues, by forming groups to address specific things, for example, addressing our climate as you all are doing, or addressing, with the elections coming up, addressing how we try to get as much information as we can out of each of the candidates that's running for office, so we'll know what we're voting for when we vote. And to be able to hold these people accountable, to be able to say to politicians that we are watching you, we've been watching you, and all we need are some prosecutors with a little bit of gumption, and we would put quite a few politicians in jail right now for having broken domestic and international law. So it's not like, I mean, it's, in one way it's kind of a dismal scene that we have, but on the other way, the thing that gives me such heart are groups like yourselves, people interested that are not about to let their grandkids have what we are seeing develop for us, that we have young men, young women who are challenging the system in federal courts and are challenging it with their bodies out in these occupied camps. So it's not, we aren't hopeless. We've got the hope, but we do have a system right now that is going in the wrong direction. And I hope that with some of the information that I've been able to mention to you tonight, that you will not give up hope, but that you will say, oh, okay, now I kind of see a little bit different way of maybe how I can talk to my neighbors, how I can talk to my city council, how I can talk to my congressmen and women, and see if I can't put pressure on them, as well as being out on the streets and being visible to all my fellow citizens. So with that, I want to thank you all so much for all that you do and for your kindness in being with us tonight. Thank you.